Once upon a time, in a small beautiful village, there lived a girl called IDara. IDara was a very beautiful girl. She was born with a bright blue eyes and a long black hair that flowed over her shoulders. Her beauty was so great that at the tender age of 12, men began to flock around her, seeking for her hand in marriage. They begged Idara's mother to get IDara betrothed to them. Idara's mother, who had lost her husband when Idara was born, was pampered by these men. They brought expensive gifts and other items so that they can win her mother's favor. But Idara's mother insisted that they had to wait till Idara was of age to decide for herself who she wanted to marry. Idara's mother would advise her in all areas of life, so that she can grow into not just a beautiful woman, but also a good and decent woman. Years passed and Idara grew into a very beautiful woman. She had so many friends who flocked around her, but Idara had one flaw. She was a talkative and a gossip. Idara couldn't keep secrets. She talked about everything and anything. She accused people of things she only heard or speculated. Idara would reveal most of the secrets her friends told her in private by telling other people and even adding what was not said. Because of this, Idara began to lose many of her friends. Although this made Idara sad, she didn't stop. Soon, the few friends that remained stopped telling Idara their secrets, but Idara would somehow find out things about them, whether true or things she only speculated, and would spread the rumor like wildfire. Eventually, Idara lost all her friends, but her best friend, Amara, stood by her side. This was because she truly loved her like a sister and wished for her to change her ways. Most of the men that wanted to marry Idara began to back out one by one due to Idara's loud mouth. Marrying a wife who could not keep secrets or her mouth shut was a no-no for the men. They backed out until no one wanted to marry Idara anymore. This devastated Idara's mother, who couldn't understand why her daughter was acting in such a disgraceful way. She advised Idara every day, pleading with her to change her ways and learn to keep her mouth shut about things, stating that secrets are meant to be kept and not everything one sees needs to be told. But Idara wouldn't listen. One fateful day, Idara woke up from her morning sleep when the cock crowed. She carried her water pot and headed out to the stream. The sun was not fully out and everywhere was still a little dark. On her way to the stream, she heard faint moans coming from a nearby bush. It sounded to Idara like someone was enjoying sexual intercourse. She immediately became suspicious. She wanted to go in and check, but feared that they might hear her and ran away. So in order to catch whoever it was, she decided to hide and see who came out from the bush. Shortly after, Akan, Amara's betrothed, came out from the bush leaning on another man. Idara let out a scream, shouting at the top of her voice that an abomination had been committed. The men looked at Idara in shock and wondered what Idara was talking about. She dropped the water pot she was carrying on the road and ran to the king's palace. When Idara arrived at the king's palace, she told the king that she caught two men in the bush engaging in a sexual act. The king jumped to his feet in shock. This was an abomination. The king was outraged. He ordered Akan to be brought before him immediately. The people apprehended Akan, beating and humiliating him as they dragged him to the king's palace. But Akan kept insisting that he was innocent. He said he fell from a palm tree and a good Samaritan who was just passing by helped him out. But Idara was not having it. Looking at Akan in the face, she told everyone that she saw them with her two eyes in the act. Amara arrived at the scene, crying and panting with fear. Knowing her friend very well, Amara took IDara by the arm inside, pleading with her to tell her exactly what happened. IDara swore with her life that she caught Akan in the act, insisting that she wasn't lying to her. The other man who held Akan could not be found, as he had run away for his dear life. Amara broke down in tears. The penalty for this abomination was death by burying the culprit alive. That same day, Akan was sentenced to death. This shocked IDara, as she did not know that Akan would be killed, but she decided to keep quiet so she would not be humiliated and maybe killed too. Akan begged IDara to tell the king the truth, but IDara refused. When Akan was being buried alive, before the last sun was poured on his face, Akan cursed IDara, telling her that her mouth would be the end of her life. After Akan was killed, Amara lost the will to live. She stopped eating and drinking. She stopped going out and stopped talking to everyone. She withdrew into her shell, and not long after, she fell sick. IDara tried everything to get her friend to go back to her former self, but nothing worked. One day, while IDara was taking food to Amara, she found something heartbreaking. She found Amara hanging on an orange tree in front of her hut, dead. This devastated IDara. She mourned and cried for IDara for several days, but soon, life returned to normal for IDara. One fateful day, IDara went to the forest to fetch firewood for the house. She ventured deep into the forest, and soon she found herself in an unfamiliar environment. She began to panic, not knowing her way out of the forest. The forest was thick and dense, sending a chill down her spine. In a bid to find a way out, she stepped on a human skull. "Hey, look at where you're going, woman," the skull said angrily. IDara was shocked and almost jumped out of her skin with fear. "Are you trying to kill me again or what?" the skull asked again. IDara was amazed. "How is this possible? You are dead. How can you talk?" IDara asked, looking at the skull with intense curiosity. "Well, I don't know. I just know I can," the skull replied. IDara jumped up excitedly. She had never in her life seen a talking skull before. She told the skull she couldn't wait to tell everyone about their encounter, but the skull warned her not to. IDara was curious and wanted to know why the skull was forbidding her. The skull told her that the forest is forbidden to the living, and that it was his mouth that kept him there in the first place, so he wouldn't want the same thing to happen to IDara. IDara promised never to tell a soul, and with that, the skull showed her the way out from the forest. Soon, IDara was on her way home. Immediately IDara got to the house, she dropped the firewood in a haste and told her mother that she had the greatest encounter. Before her mother could reply, she dashed off to the king's palace. The king was celebrating his birthday. There was a joyous celebration all around the village. The palace was filled with people enjoying themselves with food and drinks. IDara went straight to the king and boldly told him of her encounter with the skull. The king dismissed her, saying no such thing could ever happen, that she must have been dreaming. To prove her point, IDara told the king that she would take the king to the place she saw the skull. Everyone, including the king, were astonished. They all wanted to see the talking skull. It was a wonder that had never happened, and everyone wanted to see it for themselves. Everyone stood up, ready to march to the forest with IDara. But as they were about to go, the king halted IDara. He asked her what should be done to her if there was no talking skull in the forest. Standing tall with pride and confidence, IDara said her head should be cut off her neck if she was lying. Everyone was wowed by this acclamation. It must be true then, everyone thought, all standing eagerly. So with all confidence, everyone marched to the forest. They arrived at the forest, and indeed, they all saw the skull. The king became very excited. He immediately approached the skull and began talking to it. But something sinister happened. Everywhere was as silent as a graveyard. The skull could not talk. It lay there, dead and lifeless. The king picked it up and talked again excitedly, thinking he didn't hear him the first time, eager to hear what the skull would say. But the skull was silent. The king began shaking it violently, but the skull was lifeless. The king was enraged. He turned to IDara with fury in his eyes, reminding her of her words earlier about taking off her head. IDara bowed. Her heart started pounding heavily. Her hands began to tremble in panic. She knelt down, begging to talk to the skull. She collected the skull and began talking to it, crying and begging that she would be killed if the skull didn't talk. But the skull appeared to be just a lifeless bone. Mad with anger and frustration, the king ordered IDara to be beheaded there and then. The executioner, with the sharpest blade ever, stepped out. But the king, fed up with IDara's mischiefs, and for deceiving and luring him away from his comfortable palace on his birthday, took the machete and cut off IDara's head with a single blow. Immediately IDara's head touched the ground, the skull let out a loud laugh. Some people, out of fear, took to their heels, leaving others in the forests. Everyone that remained were taken aback in utter shock. It was true, they all murmured. The king, who was still with the machete filled with IDara's blood, asked the skull why it didn't talk when he asked it to. I warned her not to tell anyone. All she needed to do was keep her mouth shut. She has ruined many lives with her mouth. I am a punishment from the gods, the skull said, laughing out loudly. Suddenly, a loud lightning struck. Accompanied with a thunder, a heavy rain began to fall, bending trees and scattering leaves. It was so heavy, and it was accompanied with lightning and thunder. Everyone took to their heels, leaving IDara's lifeless head with the skull. The skull kept laughing hysterically as it watched IDara's head on the ground beside him. The people ran until they got to their houses as the heavy rain ceased to stop. It rained for 3 good days, and the people said it was to cleanse away the pain IDara's tongue had left behind. The moral of this story is that one needs to be disciplined of what they say, and not everything one sees or hears needs to be told. What are your thoughts, and what moral lesson did you learn from this story? Please let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a thought in the comment section. It helps us grow and inspires us to do more. See you next week.